everyone, it's Catherine. I wanted to share with you today my reading awards for 2025. For the last few years, I have kind of looked back on what I've read and kind of given awards for books that just really spoke of my year. So this year, my reading was a little different. And so I was having a hard time putting books into the same award categories that I made for the previous year. So I decided this year I would just do a top 10. And that was kind of hard because when I looked back, I had 15 books that just really kind of spoke to me from my year. But I think these 10 that I ended up with do showcase my 2025 of reading. My Goodreads looks different because I don't count in my reading journal like the cookbooks and things like that. So these are just books. And so I read 88 books, and that would be 23,070 pages. I read 54 fiction and 34 nonfiction, and I had 2 buddy reads that I enjoyed both very much. I had my own Biblical Studies Challenge, and then I read 12 of the 12 months, and then I participated in Through the Decades from Alma's channel, and I read 9 of the 12 decades, and so I thought that was really good. And then in the Christian Fiction Challenge by Jeanette, I read 11 of the 12 months. And then the Read the Classics Challenge from Anne's channel, I read 9 of 12 months, and so I think that was good. For my Cherry Ames goal, I read 5 more of the books of the series this year. And then of new releases, I read 13. So I think that's pretty good. So I was pleased. And so I wrote down here what I'm proud of. 1, I feel like I met my goals of explore and quality. I completed what I'm calling my freshman year of the Biblical Studies Challenge. I followed the other 3 YouTube challenges, and I completed more than half on each of them. And I completed the class through Hillsdale Online, and that was fun. And that was several months of videos and stuff, and my fiction number increased due to having to meet the challenges. So like I said, I had 54 fiction compared to 34 nonfiction, where usually it's very balanced. I enjoyed researching kind of the history of sci-fi literature. That was so much fun for the Decades Challenge, because I kind of made my own thing for, I did Christian sci-fi that I wanted to pick for each decade. And so first I needed to learn, about the genre and the different time periods of the genre. And then I had to narrow it down to Christian, which was challenging. There are 3 decades that I still have to do. And one of them, the 20s, I haven't done, and that's because I can't find anything. So I'm gonna keep looking. And then I loved learning about poetry. I didn't know much about it. I know it rhymes, but I didn't know about iambic pentameter. I didn't know a lot about poetry, and so I feel like I learned a lot, and that was very exciting to me. So I have really, learned a lot this year. And I feel like that was kind of the highlight, I guess, learning for the year. So anyways, that was my takeaways from the year. So what were my awards? Okay, so I'm going to go. I did 5 fiction and 5 nonfiction for my top 10. And I'm going to start at the bottom and then work to my favorite of each, okay? So I'm going to start with nonfiction because it had the lesser number. And most people read the fiction. So let me just get through the nonfiction. Most people watching read the fiction. So of nonfiction, and it's so hard too. Now I'm thinking, ooh, did I want to? So my least favorite, and this is really hard, but my least favorite, I'm going to, in number 5 position, I don't have a copy of this one, but I'm going to put a picture up here, and it is Happy Lies by Melissa Daughtery. Okay, just because it's number 5 does not mean it's good, because this book was amazing. It is looking at the history of New Thought and its influence upon the church. And wow, it's really good. You will be amazed if you read this, just how much, even if you're not in the denominations that it's talking about, it's in so many of them. And anyways, it's so good, so interesting, even outside of the Christian church realm. It's out there and influencing people, and so good. And I recommend reading that book because it will open your eyes to a lot of, I'm just going to say it, a lot of bad influence on the church. And so I would recommend it. And then in the number 4 position is Surprised by Jesus by Dane Ortlund. And I read this in April for like the Easter time, and it was perfect. It was a perfect book to read. It's Subversive Grace in the 4 Gospels. And as you can see, it is tabbed up. It is highlighted, and so good. And I would highly recommend reading Surprised by Jesus by Dane Ortlund. In the number 3 position, I am going to put this one that I read last month, A History of Christianity in America. This was so good. Now, like I said in my video about my November wrap-up, it was kind of like reading a textbook for me because we didn't study a lot of this history in in school, and the church stuff, you never really talked about that. And it just kind of hurt the heart a little, I guess, but so enlightening for me. A History of Christianity in America by Mark A. Ganquist. Highly recommend. That came out this year. And I got it from Baker Bookhouse, so they have it. And I think Amazon has it too. And so then in the second position, I just finished it. Humility by Andrew Murray. 5-star read. Now, I feel like I've read it twice because I read it on my Kindle, and then I went to the used bookstore and they did have a copy, this one. And so I went back and I was looking on my Kindle, it's not Kindle, it's Hoopla. But of all the highlights I made, and then I went back and highlighted it in here. And I feel like the one I read on the Hoopla was kind of a little bit more like modern English version. Whereas this one, I don't know, it was worded, it's in different spots and it's worded different. So maybe that's the reason. So I do really feel like I had to go back through, I had so many highlights in every chapter, and then I wrote, if I couldn't find what I highlighted in there, I would just write it in. And so like there's two big ones here that I felt like I couldn't find those. So I feel like I read it twice this month, but so good. If you have not read this, I highly recommend Humility by Andrew Murray. And then in the first place, I gave this one to my pastor to read, and so I don't have a copy, but I'm going to put a picture up here. And that is Catherine Barnwell. And this was a biography about an amazing woman in ministry and biblical textual criticism and missions and church technology in the church. And I mean, she really has been a force and very influential in the advancement of the Bible as far as reaching other countries. And like I said, she was a missionary too, and an amazing woman. And I will never forget reading this book, just like all of these, but that one for sure. She is an amazing woman. And so those were my top 5 nonfiction. Now, fiction. In the number 5 spot was the other buddy read I did this year, and that is The Shepherd of the Hills by Harold Bell Wright. And this one I really enjoyed, and again, I'll never forget the story. I do remember seeing the play in Branson as a kid, but I didn't remember a thing about it. So it was nice to read it, and as an adult, and I really liked it. I really did. And I gave it 4.5, but it's probably a 5-star because I remember a lot about it. Like I read this in, was it March or April? And I remember so much about the book, and I won't ever forget the story, and it was moving. And so yes, Shepherd of the Hills by Harold Bell Wright. I would recommend reading it. And then in the number 4 spot, I read this in January. Please don't laugh. The Messiah of the Cylinder. Now, I read this was written in 1917. So I read it for the Tens of the Decades Challenge and for the Christian Sci-Fi. And I really enjoyed this book. It was a great start to my year. And it was the first book I read. And it was just quite the thrill as far as like sci-fi for me, because I haven't read too much, and this is a vintage, 1917 book, and I didn't really know what to expect going in. And so, yeah, it was just kind of an enjoyment for me, and I really, really liked it. And in number 3 of fiction, A Wrinkle in Time. And this is also, you would think this would be for my Christian sci-fi, but this was for Anne's challenge, Reading the Decades, and the first book. And then the second and third book of this collection, I put for the 70s and 80s in my Christian sci-fi. So this met 3 parts of a challenge, 2 challenges, and I loved it. I loved everything about this story. I will never forget this, and it will be reread someday, and I love this story. And it goes with my Christian children's, kind of goes with that emphasis I'm interested in. And so, yes. Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. And the number 2 spot, I read this in January. Anne of Green Gables. I had never read this before. I knew nothing of the story except that she was like an orphan. That's all I knew. And I've been kind of obsessed this year. I've read 5 of the series, and I bought a whole like little collection thing in my favorite publishing company, Grosset and Dunlap. And yes, love it. I cried, I laughed. I'll never forget the Anne of Green Gables. It will be reread someday. It is part of my life now. Now, I'm sure you know what's in first place. And if you were to ask me, what was 2025 for you in your reading? This book is what I would say. This would be my book of the year because, yeah, it was so good. It was the biggest challenge in multiple ways. I read a book just to understand, to learn how to understand this book. Like, you know, like it was a big part of my 2025. Paradise Lost by John Milton. Y'all know I made a video about like how I read it, and it was a big part of my life, big part of my reading life. I've got notes all over and highlights, and yeah, this is what I took to class through the Hillsdale. I read the C.S. Lew book on it, how to read Paradise Lost, and yeah, it's part of my life, and I loved it. I loved it. I learned so much about poetry. I learned so much just about literature and reading, and so yeah, it shaped my 2025, just like all of these books did. So those were my top 10, and I hope you found it interesting. And this has gone on way too long, so I am going to probably have to chop this up. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below if you liked any of these, if you feel like I'm just should not have even included these. And yeah, so hope everybody's doing well. Okay, can't wait for my 2026 reading. I'll talk to you later.